All right, today we're going to talk about evolution. Evolution, we say, is a change over time in species. When we look at evolution, there are two main parts. The first part is just overlapping evidence, main evidence that we see. The second part is specific points that Darwin made using a theory known as natural selection. So let's start with the main evidence. When we look at the main evidence, the first thing we're going to talk about is the fossil record, meaning what we have dug up and what the bones actually look like. The second thing is geographic distribution, meaning have you ever noticed that certain species are found on different parts of the world, even though they're very similar, like an alligator and a crocodile? And then we'll look at something called embryology, the study of our embryos. If you look at an embryo, you notice that the embryo of a human and the embryo of a puppy look very similar. Well, that's because they're both mammals. They share some type of common ancestor. Next, we're going to look at biochemistry. And when we talk about biochemistry, this means that we all use those same four macromolecules, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, no matter you're a human or a rat. Then we're going to talk about comparative anatomy. And when we look at comparative anatomy, it has its own section and it has a couple different things. The first thing we're going to talk about is convergent evolution versus divergent evolution. Convergent evolution means that our anatomy has somehow found a way to live in the same environment. So let's take a shark, which is a fish, and a dolphin, which is
Yeah, they think they're so cute. Oh, look at me, I'm a flippin' little dolphin. Let me flip for you, ain't I something?
a mammal. They once upon a time started in different habitats, and somehow now they both live in the ocean, even though they're completely different types of animals. They have the same traits like fins. They live in different, they came from different places. Divergent evolution, however, means that you started in the same place and you split up. So if we had a common ancestor, that's a mammal. Now we have bats that fly and humans that walk. They're in different parts or different places now. If we look at the animals that are part of convergent evolution, they have a structure, a physical structure that is known as an analogous structure. If we look at divergent evolution, they are homologous structures. So, for example, the bat wing and the human leg would be homologous. They are similar, even though that they don't have the same function. Then we have something called a vestigial structure. Vestigial structure, these are things we don't need anymore. They're pretty much useless to us these days. Like our appendix, you can have your appendix taken out and you can be perfectly fine. Or your body hair. You don't have to have body hair to survive. We don't live in that cold of a climate anymore. We have clothes. Or your wisdom teeth. You don't need your wisdom teeth to chew up your food. So, just to recap, comparative anatomy, the main point are those homologous structures, which are part of divergent evolution, and that's, for example, we have similar bones in our arm, just like a cat does and a bat wing does. They have the humerus and all the same bones, they just use them differently, even though they're both mammals. Now, if we take a look at Darwin, first of all, before we even talk about his theory, there's a couple things that you need to know. You need to know some random facts about Darwin because they love us. They love you to know these. First of all, you do need to know the name of his theory, the theory of evolution by natural selection. Then you also need to know the name of his book. It's called The Origin of Species by Natural Selection. You also need to know the name of his boat. Believe it or not, he sailed on something called the HMS Beagle. He took off when he was 22 years old on this ship, and he made his way all the way down to the Galapagos Islands, which are just to the left of South America by about a couple hundred kilometers. And then when we talk about what he actually did, he studied finches, he studied tortoises, and he studied iguanas. And when he studied these, he started noticing differences. All of his evidence go right into the comparative anatomy section of the main part of evolution, which was a big piece in his time because we didn't have DNA evidence back then. So Darwin was a big deal. When we talk about what he actually did, he came up with natural selection and he came up with 5 bullet points that support his theory for natural selection. So let's take a look at them. First of all, natural selection, what is it? Well, it means that nature selects or nature decides who lives and who dies. The traits you're born with decide how successful you're going to be. This is known as survival of the fittest. Well, fittest doesn't mean that you're crunk and you're lit at the gym. Fittest means that you're able to produce lots of offspring. If you're fit, you're able to produce more offspring than somebody else. And those offspring have to have a special trait. They have to be fertile. Fertile means that you can have more children later on. So not only can you have babies, but your grandchildren can have babies. The more fit you are, the better chance your species has at able to survive. So let's talk about his 5 points. First of all, when he got on the island, he noticed that all these finches, these iguanas, these tortoises were genetically different. This is called genetic diversity. We are all different. Since we are different, there has to be, like Ricky Bobby said, somebody has to be first, somebody has to be last. So some traits, just because we are different, just happen to be better, and those better traits have something called an adaptation that helps us survive. Number three, he said, well, the ones that have been surviving, like the giraffe with the long neck, must be the ones with the better traits. If we look at time, the bad traits must have got thinned out early on or are being thinned out. So the ones with the traits now have been the ones that have been producing, therefore, those have the best traits. Number four, if we look at the organisms that are able to produce lots and lots and lots of offspring, those have the best chance to survival. Think about Nemo and all his family, all his brothers and sisters. If he didn't have all those brothers and sisters to satisfy Mr. Barracuda's lunch appetite, Nemo wouldn't be alive. Since marlin and coral were able to produce lots of babies, all those babies got eaten but Nemo, so they had the best chance. And of course, this takes a very, 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 very long time to observe. He said this doesn't happen overnight, so we need to measure this over thousands of years. So the next section we're going to talk about is, can we put a number on this? Well, that topic leads us to genetic evolution, known as Hardy-Weinberg, in the next video.
Ah, look. They're dreaming.